I have this deep trust in science and in the rules of physics and of the world.
Many people don't share this deep trust in science. What is a message you would like to share with non-scientists?
Science can be scary from the point of view in which you see something for the first time and you think that you will never understand. If you meet a scientist, ask them to try to explain to you what they do in simple terms and don't be scared that you will not understand, because we are all humans doing this.
Could you just explain what it is that you are researching?
Quantum physics, yes, it's my field. It has been such for the past 4 years. And doing experiments for us, yes, we are trying to investigate.
Lorenzo Graziotto, you're a doctoral student at ETH Zurich studying quantum physics, a field that is as mind-boggling as it is mysterious. What drove you to study this subject?
Hi, Nicola. Thank you for having me here, first of all. Let me say hi also to all of our listeners and viewers for today. So, quantum physics, yes, it's my field. It has been such for the past 4 years, almost. I'm an experimental physicist, first of all. I like to always add this adjective because I'm trying to make myself more closer to something that you can actually picture yourself doing. So like something that you can do with your hands. And doing experiments for us, yes, we are trying to investigate the ultimate reality. But in the end, what we are really doing is measuring currents and doing experiments at very low temperatures where these effects are present and manifest. And I would say the beginning of my story was that I was always fascinated about science and in general knowledge, I would say. And since my high school studies, I had a very motivated teacher back then. It was my third year of high school. And since then I decided that maybe that could have been a career worth pursuing. And so, yeah, basically all the steps that came after that were quite natural for me. I never doubted that that was actually my field, but I came to realize that I actually liked it over the years. So for me, like high school, I was rather good in math and physics. And then I said, let's try to do this also at university. And then I moved on. And then towards the end of university, I started thinking about what to do next. And I didn't even know back then what was a PhD. And I thought, maybe actually doing research is something that I would enjoy doing in my life. And then I decided to come here to Zurich and to ETH. So as far as I can picture myself, I think I was really lucky to find this passion of mine and just following the steps one after the other. So, yes.
Do you remember if you had a specific moment where this passion was sparked? Did you have someone who inspired you particularly, an experience that started this passion?
I think, yes, in general for science, it was, I was lucky enough to be in a high school, a scientific high school, let's call it like that. It's a liceo in Italy. And we had a lab both for physics and also for chemistry. And we could see like chemical reactions happening. We had a very nice professor showing that. Or also for physics, the same. We were doing experiments, hands-on experiments. So that always kind of stayed in the back of my mind, the fact that I wanted to do something where I could actually see with my eyes what was going on. But as I was saying, I think my professor, my physics professor back then, he was, he still is a researcher at CERN in Geneva. And so back then he was also telling us about the environment, this scientific and research environment in Switzerland, which is amazing. And since then, I thought that was actually a profession, so that you could actually be a researcher. But then actually, this is the story that I seldom say, that the actual moment in which I decided that I would like to study physics came when at the middle of my fourth year of high school, unfortunately, this teacher had to leave us because he decided to go back doing research. And so it was substituted by another teacher that just came in the middle of the year. So, of course, he didn't know us and he didn't know how to gauge also the knowledge that he had to transfer to us. And basically, we were lost as a class, as a group of students who could not relate to this teaching anymore. And so at that moment, I started to think, either I go on and study physics by myself, or at least the topics that were at that time very easy, of course, in high school, or I will not be able then to pursue this in the future. And so I actually went to YouTube, and it's actually also an inspiration for what I decided to do afterwards about it, but maybe we will talk about it later. And I found on YouTube that there were a collection of lectures from Yale University, from this professor that was just uploading his live stream, not live, but the recordings of his teachings in the class. And it was at a level which was a little bit understandable, because I think it was not a course for physicists, but like for engineers that do a kind of course of physics which is way less hard with respect to the one that you would do in physics. And I started watching these lectures, and I saw how was the environment at university, or at least how was knowledge transferred in that situation. And I said, well, that actually it's pretty cool. So that could actually be something that I could do afterwards. I was a bit struggling to find which kind of science I liked the most back when I was in high school. But then I think that experience, although it was a kind of a negative experience, was actually what pushed me more towards physics. And then I'm happy that it happened in the end.
So you mentioned you went to Liceo, high
Yes.
school in Italy. Where in Italy do you come from, and what path did you take after high school?
Yes, so I come from Treviso. It's called. It's a city. We call it city, but it's more like a town, I would say, in the northeastern part of Italy, near Venice. It's like 30 kilometers from Venice. So I usually sell it like it's closer to Venice than anywhere else. And I did these studies, but then at the end of my studies, I was deciding where to go for university. And there is actually a very important university in Italy. It's called the Normale di Pisa. It's similar to École Normale in France. I think they were founded more or less around the same period of time, and it's for very skilled students. Most frequently, it is people that did like the mathematics Olympics or the physical Olympiads. So very very smart people that try to apply there. And then I never did actually this kind of competitions. I did it only once, but I didn't classify so well. So my hopes to actually get inside this school were rather low. But I actually tried it, and then I passed the written test. And at that moment, I was also applying for other kind of schools or scholarships, because my idea was to leave home, to go somewhere else in Italy, not because the universities that were around my place were not good. Actually, there is the Padova University, at which my teacher that I was mentioning before studied. And but I wanted to go as far away as possible from home to try to live my life independently and to push myself to actually be, or at least try to be independent. And at that time, I was also applying for this college in Rome. It's called Collegio dei Cavalieri del Lavoro, where they were offering kind of complementary courses that were not only on mathematics or physics, but also on kind of entrepreneurial skills or economics or politics. And since in high school, I was always interested more in the more like wide and diverse fields of knowledge, let's say. Also, the civic involvement was rather high for me at that time. I said, maybe if I just focus on science, I will be like a person that just lives in the lab, which is actually what I am, or more so now. And we lose all this interest towards actual social participation or something like that. And then before doing this oral exam for the Normale di Pisa, I decided that actually I had already won the position at this collegio in Rome, and then I decided to withdraw. It's not even given that actually I would have gotten inside this other school, but I was very happy with my choice in the end. And I went to Rome. I studied at Sapienza physics for both the bachelor and the master, and I'm extremely happy with my choice. I think I would repeat it multiple times if I had again to decide back then. And then the decision to come here actually came towards the end, as I was saying, because at first I was saying I didn't even know what was a PhD. I didn't know about the path. I think this could be actually a little bit more told to the students. This is not something that people know how is the career to become an academic potentially one day. And so during my fourth year, so the first year of the master, actually my fourth year in the college, we were doing this project together with the group in which I am now in Zurich. And there was this PhD student there in the group where I was in Rome, Chiara, and I had actually spent some months here in Zurich at ETH in this group, like 6 months period. And she was telling me about this beautiful place, beautiful country, beautiful city, beautiful people in the group. And she was in awe every time she was telling me about that. And so, I mean, I was completely contaminated by this joy and passion. And I think actually this seems a really nice place to go afterwards. And so even before knowing what I would be researching afterwards, I just decided to try to apply to the group, to contact some people that were actually there. And I mean, some of them I actually worked with in my first 3 years of PhD. And also that choice kind of randomly, I would say, because it was more something that relied on recommendations of other people and that told me that such environment was so good that I decided to come here. And I'm also so happy that I would repeat this choice again.
So let's rewind a little bit.
Yes.
You said you were wanting to leave home to start living independently. You broke the Italian stereotype of living at home for a very long time. Why was that important to you?
I think yes, no, indeed, it is a stereotype, but I think unfortunately it's something that is more forced on Italian young people because the economic situation of our country, unfortunately, is not the best one. And I kind of fear that when I was in high school, I was picturing myself in the future and thinking I cannot be so dependent on my family. I want to build something by myself, and so I was trying to find all the ways possible for me to leave home. It was kind of a scare thing that I had, that I would have been constrained at home. So as soon as I had the occasion, I actually took it. And I think, I mean, it's hard, and this I remember myself often. Also, being abroad is hard. Now, in my future plans, I would like to go even further from here to continue my academic career, hopefully. And but I think actually what it gives you back is the confidence that you're actually able to do something by yourself and that you can rely on yourself. Even if actually this is not completely true, because you always rely on other people that are around you, but it's not your family, it's not the environment that you grew up in that is so important for your development. You can actually do something by yourself and figure it out things by yourself.
You already mentioned leaving your home behind and being independent gave you confidence. In what other ways has this experience maybe changed you as a person?
I think, yeah, this is a nice question. I think, yeah, the first time I actually realized that I needed this confidence, or I was actually changing my way of thinking, was when I moved here. I think because I felt for the first time that I was an immigrant, actually, and also my attempt to try to learn the language, which I'm trying, I'm struggling a bit because it's not so easy, stemmed actually from that perception. Not because the people make you think you are, but just because you feel that you are in another context, and then that you actually, not even that the culture is so different, because I think the European culture per se is much more related, or is much more closer to the culture of different states that we are actually willing to admit. Like the Italians culture or the French culture or the German culture are actually more closer together than I don't know, like Asian culture or something like that. But it's the fact that you know that you are dealing with other bureaucracy, for example, or with people that have different habits or costumes than you. And so that kind of feeling actually sticked with me. And it led me, on the other end, to actually feel more empathic towards the people that do the opposite journey and actually move to Italy, for example, and which are always or very often on the headlines for what they do for, I don't know, like crimes or these inflated numbers that are sometimes reported in Italian journals. But actually, the experience is exactly the same. They are people that are trying to move from a less lucky place to somewhere where they hope they will find more economic perspectives or opportunities. And for me, it was actually the same. It's just that it was starting from a place which was maybe much more better than what these people are starting from. So I think in that sense, I gained more confidence for myself, but also more awareness of what makes people move and leave behind their family and their friends and try to pursue something in a different context.
I have two questions. The first being, what was the most surprising thing coming to Switzerland, if there was anything surprising for you? And the second one being, what was the most difficult thing about moving here?
So yeah, for this thing that surprised me the most, I think, this was already a stereotype, but I was not, I didn't believe in it until I saw it, like the extreme punctuality of everything. So that everything actually works, the public transport works. And one thing that I remember, I was coming home late one night, and I was seeing the city, like the empty city, because I think it was like in the middle of the week. Like 11 p.m. It was the city center, so not many people around. And I was thinking, this seems like the rendering of a city of the future, because it's like I'm living inside something that has been planned as the best place where you can actually live. So this definitely is an experience that I would recommend people to try to do and to come here and witness. And it's actually so nice of a place that I would like to one day maybe come here if I could actually manage to do my academic career. And the other question was what was most difficult. I think the impact with the language was the most difficult. I started learning German since the second semester I came here, and it's still so difficult also because the accent or the dialect, the Schweizerdeutsch is rather difficult. But I would like to live here when it will be the time, knowing at least a bit to kind of at least have a conversation with someone, even if a basic one. But yes.
So you came here to Zurich for your academic journey. Could you, in the most simple terms possible, because the field you're working in is not simple, but could you just explain what it is that you are researching?
Yes, thank you for the question. This is a nice question. It's difficult to answer because every time I say it, it seems so far-fetched that people could just say, well, but what's even the purpose of this? But so, in extreme, the simplest term, the thing that I always like to start with is the fact that the vacuum, so vacuum per se, is not empty. And so quantum mechanics, so we were mentioning quantum before, quantum mechanics has a lot of quirk ideas, and one of these ideas is the so-called indeterminacy principle. So the fact that, for example, you cannot know at the same time the position and the velocity of a particle, not because you cannot measure them at the same time, but just because in their hidden reality, in their ultimate reality, they are quantum objects that cannot have a defined position and velocity at the same time. And among these others ideas of indeterminacy is the fact that light, so we know that light is a wave, but it's also a photon, so it's a collection of these particles. And this quantum object also has this kind of indeterminacy principle, because the electric and the magnetic energy that compose this electromagnetic field, which is actually what describes light, they cannot vanish simultaneously. So even if when you don't have light, so you are in complete darkness, this electromagnetic field still exists, and these electric and magnetic energies, since they cannot be simultaneously zero, they oscillate. They have these fluctuations. And these fluctuations actually have very much observable consequences, so fluctuations of the vacuum, because they are, for example, the responsible for the Casimir forces, these are called, which are the same forces that help the gecko's feet to hold on the surfaces on even vertical surfaces, because they apply to bodies that are in very close proximity. And it's just these fluctuations that can actually make these feet stick. And so what we are actually doing is to take these fluctuations that manifest at very low temperature. I mean, to observe them, you need to go to very low temperatures. You have to go to a place which is completely dark, where you don't have any kind of light. And we take these fluctuations and we couple them, so we make them interact with material systems. And material systems are like semiconductors, so the materials that you would find, for example, in the chips or in the processor of your laptop or your smartphone. And inside these materials, the electrons behave differently when they interact with these vacuum fluctuations. And we made some discoveries during these years. These vacuum fluctuations, I mean, they have been studied a lot in the past, for the past century. They have been seen their effects on atomic systems, but it was not believed that you could actually see their influence on material systems, because they are much larger, and also the number of electrons is so large that you would not expect actually this effect to be so manifest. And instead, I mean, so recently we published a work in which we showed that actually these fluctuations can be used to manipulate some quantum states. And what's the purpose of this? Well, this is fundamental research, so the main purpose is understand more about stuff. But one of the selling points that we like to make is the fact that you can actually shape the environment, so use these fluctuations to modify the environment that surrounds a particular material, and then modify the properties of these materials. And this would be a way of modifying these properties in a kind of non-energetically expensive way, because what you're really doing is just modifying the electromagnetic environment around.
I'm just fascinated by the way you're talking about this with so much ease, and I'm not going to lie, I was a little lost now and then, but it's just so nice to see with how much passion you're talking about your research. And what does your day-to-day life look like in the lab? So how do you even make these discoveries and figure out these things?
So yeah, it's a very long journey, of course, because I mean, this project started with the previous colleague of mine that now finished their PhD, and there was another colleague before, and then another before, and so all of these discoveries actually do not happen in a vacuum, although we try to see it, and I mean, they are built on the course of years, and within each year and within each day there is one small, extremely small step that you can make every day. So one lab day, let's say, it depends a lot. So this is a first disclaimer. I mean, a PhD, an experimental physics PhD, is something that you cannot say it's the same day repeated for 4 or 5 years, whatever, because there are days in which you need to process new samples. So you need to design what is the best layout for your sample. Then you have to go to the clean room, which is this facility in which you can make extremely small structures with a very high precision and in a very clean environment, so you don't have dust or other particles that can contaminate your samples. You have to go there and you have to optimize the process or learn recipes, and other people have to teach you how to process these things. And if things go wrong, you have to repeat many steps. So maybe, let's say, in 1 week, you can actually have a sample. Then you go back to the lab and you stick this sample inside your dilution refrigerator, it's called. So it's a fridge, basically, but it can reach very low temperatures. It's temperatures that are 100 times lower than the temperature of outer space. We can reach 0.01 Kelvin, so 0.01 degrees above the absolute zero. And then when you stick it in the fridge, you put your sample in the fridge, then you have to hope that actually everything goes well. And this is not always the case, because there are so many parts that can break or can go wrong, that actually you need to optimize everything. So there are pumps that create this vacuum. There are other systems to cool down all the experiment. There are things that move inside our setup to actually reference this. So what we are actually doing is, as I was saying before, we want to modify this electromagnetic environment, and so we have some positioners, some things that move inside to modify this thing, and also these have to work. And so let's say if you actually want to plan and figure out and make these measurements, at least for the research that I was mentioning before, we took like 6 months just from the moment where we started to make this chip to the moment when we finished taking these measurements. And just the measurement part was like 3.5 months. And so during the day, let's say if you are in the lab, you go if you're in the office, you go to the lab, you start the measurement protocol, then you wait the time that you need to wait for the sample to be called, you acquire the data, then you have to look at your data, understand if the contacts that you're measuring are actually good, if the parameters that you're using are actually the correct ones. And you have to make a hypothesis about what you are seeing. And then a big part of our work is also to connect with other theorists, because we are an experimental group. We can work out our theories by ourselves, but it's always nice in science to have other collaborations. So we have collaborators in Paris, in Hamburg, also in the United States, in Boston. And it's very cool actually to see different people thinking in different ways. So you go to them, you present them your data, they come up with some ideas are good, some you find out only months later that were actually not the correct ones because they ask you to make other experiments. And when you do these other experiments, you realize that actually they do not show what these people predicted. And then in the end, let's say in a normal day, you will find yourself going back and forth from the lab, checking the emails, see if some collaborators have replied, if your collaborator that gives you the material has given you some new material to try. So it's so diverse that I actually enjoy it a lot. I think this is the thing that I carrying most dear from these years of PhD is the variety of things. It's not the same every day. Even though I try to stick to a routine, I go to the office or to the lab at 9 a.m. And go back like at 6 or 7 p.m. It depends. But also in the routine, there is the lunchtime, which is sacred. And this is it's always funny because I usually quote one of my favorite scientists, which is Enrico Fermi, was this famous Italian physicist. And like at 12 for us, 12 it's lunchtime. So whatever you are doing, you go to lunch. And it's funny because there is a quote from him, and he was working on the very first nuclear reaction ever. I think it was in Chicago when he was building this first nuclear reactor. And they were close to actually witnessing the first nuclear reaction ever, but it was close to 12. And then he said, well, we have to stop. We have to go to lunch. So they stopped the experiment completely. They went to lunch and then they went back and then they actually saw what they were supposed to see. So this is the kind of the routines that actually keep me or help me having a structure in my days. But then on top of this, there is the whole variety and excitement of doing different things during the different months.
So your experiments take a long time usually, and sometimes the outcome isn't what you expected, or maybe things go wrong. Do you just have to be very patient, or do you get frustrated? What is the process like?
I think, yes. The patience is one of the most important skills I think you need for an experimental PhD. I think the frustration most comes from things that are, at least for me personally, comes from the things that I cannot actually control. So, for example, if we have some delivery time for a new component that we need, or if we need some answers from the theory collaborators, or if we are like something breaks and we need to send it back. Also, that can have like a delivery time of 1 month. So you say, okay, now I have to figure out something else to do within this month to actually keep the experiment running, or do something else, because otherwise it's a month wasted. And the frustration comes more from that. For the things that I actually do with my hands, like the other day I was very frustrated doing soldering works, but it's not the same level of frustration because at least I feel that it's something that if I spend the whole day or maybe the whole next day or the whole week, I can actually solve this thing. And I'm stubborn enough to make myself, in the end, make it work. So this is my experience with frustration.
How do you stay motivated, though, in these times when you don't know when you might be able to continue an experiment because something has gone wrong and you just have to wait a month or two?
I think, the motivation comes more from the fact that I never take myself seriously. So even if I believe that what we are doing is so important for the advancement of science and of society in general, in the end I realize that I'm just a person playing with screws and stuff and experiments. And it's a lot of fun. You need a lot of attention and focus and a lot of previous knowledge actually to understand what you are doing. But in the end, it's a fun work to do, I think. So my motivation in the end is, whatever I can complain, whatever is not working, maybe in the end it will work. I draw from my previous expertise and from the fact that, even if you don't achieve so much in the short term if you do the things that are supposed to work. I mean, in the end, it's also determinism, is science. So if you predict something and the prediction is based on something that is solid, you are expecting to actually see what you are predicting. So I think I have this deep trust in science and in the rules of physics and of the world that I think, maybe in the short time I cannot see this progress, but in the end, maybe I will.
Many people don't share this deep trust in science, and when you say sometimes it's just fun and you feel like you're playing around with screws and trying different things, from the outside it might seem like it's not necessarily leading to a result. What would you like to tell people who have this skeptical outlook on science, and why is fundamental research actually fundamental?
I think one reason why many people do not, fear science, but or like despise the scientific endeavor itself, is because they don't know actually the inner mechanics or like the fact that it's in the end like a human endeavor, a human activity. So it has a lot of flaws. It connaturate to the fact that we are humans doing stuff. And so they do not understand that, for example, if there are different scientists that disagree on something, it does not mean that science is not working, but it's actually the main feature of science, that people debate and then they bring proof, and then in the end what is really deciding if something is true or false is when you do an experiment and you show with your experiment which theory is the correct one. And I think to show, many people disregard this argument and they say, okay, so it's science, you have to trust people that know more than you, to the random person that was never, that had never actually had experience about science itself. And I think that this actually is a completely negative statement, or something negative for the integrity of science itself. Because, first of all, I always remind myself that whatever we do in science, we are doing with taxpayers' money. And so it's good to report on them about what we are trying to do. And it's good to say this is an investment that can pay off only in the very long term. We cannot tell you what it will be good for unless somebody then comes up with an idea to actually apply the knowledge that you have gained. And the other thing is to try not just to trivialize what you are doing and try to explain in simple terms just because you feel that people should be kind of taken or kind of involved in the understanding of what you're doing. But I think it's more an understanding of the process that is behind. So to tell them that the scientific process works by trying a lot of different routes, and 99% of them are wrong, but still they are needed because you can find out which one was the correct approach only in hindsight. And so more transparency about this, I think, would benefit actually the narration that is done for science outside.
How do you think that we can create more transparency to make this clear?
So one way definitely is with of course, this is a disclaimer because I own a popularization channel. So on YouTube, so with popularization, I think, so talking more about how science works is definitely a way to do this, to try to address this task, so to try to be more transparent. But another way, I think, is also trying to remove that kind of a narcissistic patina that surrounds some of the scientists. So people that think that since they discovered one thing, in the 80s, then they have the right to talk about everything and every topic. Science is so, especially nowadays, is so sectorial and so narrow that even with fields that are close, sometimes you don't even have the same language to communicate. And so you cannot pretend to actually be an expert of everything. So be an expert on your field and then try to be more humble with other people when communicating, especially to people that are not involved in science but do something else in society. And you should recognize that, every work has its dignity. And so, I think more humbleness would be beneficial for this.
You just mentioned your YouTube channel. When did you start it? And what was the reason why you decided you wanted to start creating content and uploading it to YouTube?
So, this came now almost 9 years ago. No, 9 years ago this month, I think. It's called Mi offro io. So Mi offro io is actually Italian for I offer myself, which is a little bit funny, but it's kind of the sentence that you would say in high school when you want to have an oral test. Because I mean, the way in which the Italian school system is organized is that during the course of the academic year of the student year, how is it called? The school year, yes. You have many written tests and also oral tests. And usually the professors or the teachers ask people in the classroom who is willing to go and do an oral test. And so if you are willing to do so, then you kind of save the other classmates, because maybe that the majority of people would not be prepared on that particular topic. You maybe are, and then you offer yourself for this oral test, and you avoid for anyone else to be subjected to the same thing. So this was the inspiration of the name. And the reason was actually because at the end of high school, I had gained a lot of knowledge that I do not possess anymore now on literature topics and philosophy, and a lot of stuff that actually I was studying a lot in high school. I had very motivated teacher for that. And I was fearing that since I had decided that I would go to science, I would have lost all these ideas of these great philosophers, of these great writers, Italian writers for the majority, for the greatest part. And so I said that I will just do a sort of archive of everything I know in my brain. And I took my notes and started to do like videos. At the very beginning, I was trying to do like 3 videos per week, which is an insane amount of work that I could not be able to do right now. And just put these videos there to have a collection of stuff that I once knew, and then maybe I would not know anymore as it actually is right now, because many of these things I actually do not recollect anymore. And then during the course of the years, and even the first year, actually, there were a lot of people that were just relying on these videos to repeat the lecture before the day of the written test, or especially for the final exam, which in Italy is really this big thing. It's called the maturità.
In Switzerland too.
Okay, it's the Matura, I think.
Matura, yeah. Exactly.
And so it's this huge exam in which you have all the topics that you have studied during the course of the 5th year of high school. And they were actually using this video just to remember these topics. And then at that point, when I saw all the comments, I said, but these are actually useful. So I continue to do so for the following years. My dream at the beginning was actually to then shift more towards science and popularization, so more on the stuff that I would be working on in the future. And it is still in the process of happening. So I mean, now literature, of course, I cannot do any more videos, but I've been doing also videos on economics or politics, because it's also, I mean, I do not have a clear editorial line. It's more stuff that interests me, and I make a video. And it's the first audience of my videos is always myself. So it's like I do this because I want to remember about this in some years. Then if other people are interested, then good for them. But
so the initial motivation was to help yourself, to have your archive of knowledge. And then in the end, a lot of people are benefiting from your videos. So what have the reactions been like?
It has been quite satisfying, I have to say, because I when I was in Rome, especially, I was stopped on the streets also multiple times, and this always elated me, I would say, from students that were saying that actually with my videos they could understand more what they had studied in class, or maybe their teacher were not so good, and so they were using my videos just to learn for the first time. But one comment that I liked was from a couple of comments that actually came were for people that were older than the usual age for students, and they were telling me that they were back to study, or back to school, even when working, so like doing a job and then going to school in the evening, for example, because they wanted to catch up with things that they could not study when they were younger. And they said, actually, your videos kind of gave me the motivation of going back and understand these things and enjoy the knowledge that actually comes from it. And so this actually moved me a lot. So I think this is when I feel that the amount of work that I'm putting in it's too much for actually what I'm gaining, let's say, in terms of views or of comments, which is, they are metric, so in the end it's just numbers. But when I see these experiences or these comments below, then this is actually what pushes me to try to continue this project.
I mean, you could have found other ways to archive your knowledge. What pushed you to do it on camera, online, in front of an audience?
I always enjoyed actually speaking in public. I had some opportunities since my third year of high school because my Italian literature teacher, she liked the way in which I talked during these oral tests, and then she invited me multiple times to. We were doing this project in like the Italian villas in Veneto, which is my region, and we were presenting the story of these buildings. So these are kind of buildings or like residences that were built during the 18th century from famous architects. And there are very rich families that sometimes hosted these parties in these villas for spreading the culture and the beauty of these places, because they are actually, architecturally important and relevant also for the more heritage, let's say. And so she was asking me to come just to study the story of these places and then to explain to the people that were visiting. And this I liked a lot back then. And then I had another occasion because at the end of my fourth year, we were invited to the Italian Senate, so to the high chamber of the parliament, because our school was candidate to win a prize for a project. I think it was a project related to the territory. And so telling, about a poetry from poets from Treviso, for example. And so we were invited there. We didn't know that we would have actually won that prize. But she asked me if I was willing to give a discourse, a speech in this Senate if we had to win, if we won that prize. And then I said, yes, of course, why not? I'm not even sure if we are actually winning it. And then I did. We did. I found out, and then I did this speech, and I felt that it was really cool actually to be in front of so many people and talk. So I said, with the camera is the same. It's a little bit more difficult actually, because with just you and the camera, you don't have any kind of feedback from the other side. So you have to rely on what you think you are actually trying to communicate. When instead, if you have an audience, you can try to gauge what is the level of attention, most importantly, I think. But in the end, as I also was saying at the beginning, I think, yes, it started as an archive for myself, but I also thought, maybe somebody can actually benefit from this, because in the end, it's just a summary of what they are supposed to know for these tests. And so, I think I had, I was lying basically before, but I had already this hope that people would have been looking at the videos back then, but I didn't admit to myself.
What gives you this inner confidence to get up in front of a crowd? Because that's not something just anyone would feel comfortable doing.
I think it's I think it's I don't know, natural maybe. I have this I would not call it talent, but at least I am not anxious when doing so. And especially, when I talk about science, and so I had the opportunity to do so many times for conferences in these years of the PhD. I think it's actually one of the things that I enjoy the most. It's just, I think. I don't even think it is a matter of confidence in yourself. It's more of confidence about what you are talking about. And I realized this, I think, the first time when I was discussing my bachelor thesis. Because back then, you were here to discuss the thesis just in front of two other professors. And when I was talking about it, I said, actually, while I was speaking, I was kind of listening to myself and thinking, but actually I know these things. It's not just that I studied them. Yes, of course, I had made multiple exams before, but it was kind of going away from the usual audience. It's not just the professor that taught you the course, and then you are giving back the same knowledge that they passed on to you. But it's other people that are actually not involved in what you are doing, and you are telling them for the first time the story that you have worked on. And they were actually interested, and it seemed that it was correct what I was saying. So I would say the main confidence comes from confidence about what you are talking about. And so for the videos, for example, I spend a huge amount of time just preparing and studying a lot. And all my videos, they are heavily edited because I make a lot of mistakes while I speak. A lot of time I I go back and say sentences differently than I thought that I should have said them. And so, yeah, it's more about the confidence in what I'm talking than the confidence in myself. So I trust more the topic than my presence, I would say.
Going back to your scientific career, to your academic career, what makes a good scientist? What are the traits that are needed to be successful and, to be able to make it?
This is a nice question. I never thought about it. I think definitely, I would say some of the traits that I have, but I'm not sure that these are actually the correct traits to have. But one thing that I have, and I think it's important, is the curiosity, because you need somehow to be motivated to understand something more, or to study something new. And it's a curiosity that, for me at least, is coupled also with some obsession to know the things the correct way. So when I was studying, multiple times I was not just it's not distrust, but it's kind of making sure that what is being said is completely right. So I was studying from multiple books and comparing them against each other to see if there were some sources of misunderstanding, because I wanted to be sure to absorb the topic in the correct way. So it was kind of, I would say, like an investigative job. So for many things, I was just trying to figure out what was the actual truth behind, even if it's actually the truth coming from these models. So curiosity for sure. Then humbleness, as I was saying before, and it's humbleness from the side of speaking with other people, of course, and that is more related to how I think science should be communicated. But it's also, more generally, humbleness in front of nature, because at least from scientists, the last judge is nature itself. So when you do an experiment, you are interrogating the nature and trying to understand if what you are hypothesizing is actually correct or not. And so these, I think, always remembering that what you are doing is trying to figure out something which is hidden and maybe was not supposed to be understood in the first place. And then I think, this is my particular trait. I don't know if it's shared so much, but it's a stubbornness, incredible stubbornness. As I was saying before, I would not stop until something works in the way in which I want it to work. And it has costed me a lot of time, because a lot of time is wasted just staying on the same track, which maybe is a dead end, and you just continue to push. And sometimes you have also to realize that maybe that is not the right approach, and then you have to change completely. And for some other things, you just need to repeat and repeat and repeat multiple times until you find out that the things you want to do actually works.
Have you always been this curious?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, at least according to the stories of my mother, I think, yes. She taught me how to read and write even before I started school. I was always, she tells me, at least because I don't remember at all, that I was always going around with a book and try to see new things, or to ask how things were working. But actually, to find out that my place was in a lab, or that I like to do experimental work, came out much later. I think only at the very last year of university, I realized that was the things that I wanted to do. Before, I was thinking that it was not actually very good with my hands. I was more of a library rat, let's say, or someone that likes to take the book, study them, or find out new theories. And these actually I'm not so good, I realized afterwards. I like more to do things with my hands. And I think this stubbornness comes also from this side.
I think, of course, your curiosity probably helped you a lot in what you're doing now. But in my experience, it's also very important to have people who can nurture the curiosity. So good teachers, a good environment. What was the environment like that you grew up in?
It was an environment very fostering this curiosity, I think. So as I was saying, my mother was always very keen on teaching me new stuff. Also my father. I found out that my father was a physicist only after some time, because I mean he studied physics, but he never did the profession of physics. And when I asked him what was like doing physics, he never told me. So in the end, I figured it out by myself. But he was always, I mean, I think that this is like the natural way in which you think if you have studied physics, is like always asking yourself how things work. And so he was always very keen in explaining me stuff. And then, I mean, it was something that I was always encouraged to do, just to ask a lot of questions. And if they could not answer to me, then I was trying to find out the answer by myself. And then the environment at school also was good, because I was lucky to have this teacher, as I was saying before. But more than in high school, actually, I enjoyed that a lot the years of university, because there it was not only the teachers, but also the classmates and the colleagues. And I was lucky enough to have a beautiful group of friends. We are still friends also now. And we were always, going to each other places to make exercises, to do the exercise, the homework together, and always debating, even in kind of a noisy way with the teacher. I mean, if something with the professor, if something was not right, we were making a mess, actually. A couple of times we were also scolded from the professor because we were debating during the lecture and saying, no, but this cannot be right. And then in the end, we were actually correct. And this was the thing that I enjoyed the most during the university year, to have people with that share the same interest that I had, and to see each other and support each other so much in trying to understand what things are, which is in the end the goal of physics. And then during the PhD, I think, also here I found an incredible environment. As much as the topics are concerned, we work on different things. So we are, at least the subgroup that I'm part of is smaller. We are like 4 or 5 people that work on similar topics. So of course there is less debate audience, let's say, but it's also very fun. And then my supervisors also helped me a lot during these 4 years now of PhD. Always, the thing that I liked the most was the fact that they were valuing my point of view, which is not something that is taken for granted. I think, especially because, I hear stories of people that just say that their supervisor tell them do this, and they don't even question their point of view. And instead, for me, it was always valuing. Most of the time I'm wrong, and I totally know that I'm wrong. So most of the time, in the end, the idea of my supervisor is better than mine. But I like that they take my point of view into consideration. I feel seen and valued on this. And I think this is crucial for developing your own academic independence and your also confidence, as I was saying before.
So right now you're spending still a lot of time in the lab. How long is your PhD still going on for?
So my plan, now I'm starting to see what to do next, because I would like to stay in academia. And although I love this city, I think it's one of the best places in the world. At least what I've seen so far. Unfortunately, at least for science, you need to go abroad, to go somewhere else to continue your career. And so to do a postdoc. And I'm planning to go to the United States to do so, to New York in particularly. And now I'm applying for funds, because we know that the situation in the States is not the best for scientific grants or scientific money, let's say. And so I want to get my independent fundings. And so my plan now is to finish middle of next year and then move there like in 1 year, more or less. So I would do like a 4.5 or 5 years PhD, which is, kind of on the short side, at least in our group. But I'm very happy with what I did so far. And I think it's the right moment also to try to do something else. And this was actually what stressed me a lot in the past months, because I was applying to this fund, to this fellowship actually, and I will know the results only in some months. But that was the very first time in which I had to come up with an idea by myself. So at that point, I realized how much I had relied on the ideas of my supervisor, and I realized that it's actually incredibly hard to actually have an idea and to sell this idea. And so I spent, 1 month and a half to write down this idea and then to exchange my plan, my research plan with the professor that would be my mentor there in the States. And he was giving me a lot of feedback that I loved, but at the same time, I was realizing how difficult it is and also how far from an understanding I was. So this was also upsetting me a lot because I was thinking, so far, the things that I was doing were coming out nice. Now it's something that I'm struggling incredibly and I cannot communicate what I have, but mainly because my ideas were not clear to me in the first place. And this is one of the feelings. I should have added this to also to the characteristics. It's part of the stubbornness, let's say. The fact that when I cannot understand something, I think it's one of the feelings that I hate the most. And so it's what drives that stubbornness. And at that point, in these past months when I was writing this proposal, I realized how little I knew of stuff in physics that in principle is narrow to what I'm doing or close to what I'm doing. But I didn't know about it. And so I had to study a lot. In the end, I'm actually happy how it came out. So I'm confident that I hope it will pass. But it was a nightmare experience, let's say.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed for you that everything goes smoothly with the fellowship.
Thank you.
Now that the situation in the United States is a bit particular, let's say, do you have any worries or concerns about potentially going to New York for your further research?
No, actually, I'm lucky to be in the demographic that should be less affected from this, or at least from what I can see, from what I can read, and also it's a place which is not supposed to be so unwelcoming for foreigners. So I think in this sense it should be smooth, but of course I am relying on independent fundings. So yeah, I think that would be the main source of calmness for this thing. But at least as I see it at the moment, I would not see myself living indefinitely in the States. I still like the European way of living and the European culture in general. So I would like to come back here afterwards.
Do you have an ultimate goal you would like to reach, somewhere you would like to be in maybe 10 years?
Yeah, I would like to be a professor, actually. I think it's... I realized this only during these past years, during the PhD. Before I had other... I had the dream of becoming an entrepreneur or something like that. But it's actually very close, I would say. It's the only difference is that an entrepreneur is doing it with money from other people. They can collect or... I don't know, like stockholders, let's say, and professors are doing with taxpayers' money, as I was saying before. So you kind of need to have a little bit more. You have to be a little bit more careful also in what you do. But I think in the end is, it's still trying to pursue your research and your ideas and foster an environment in which the people of your team feel welcomed and also their efforts are being recognized. And I think, my supervisor always gave me this impression. I always feel welcomed and valued in our group, and I would like to do something similar in my future. So if it ever happens, I think this would be the most important thing. I would not like to be in the group that does the most important research in the world or the most cutting edge, but a group in which people feel not at home because it's still work, but feel valued and that their work is actually meaningful for them.
If you ever change your mind about becoming a professor, I can also see you being a TV host with your own series, like National Geographic or something, because you have such a great camera presence and the way you speak and explain things. It's really
thank you.
Great.
That would also be pretty cool, I think. That I had once the opportunity to go on live on Italian television. It was this like show for kids actually, and unfortunately I was not in presence. It was done via Skype, I think. And so it was just how do you say, like there was not a recording of me, but it was live connected with them. But it was fun to try to explain electrical current to kids, to an audience that is supposed to be kids. I couldn't see them. And this I really liked a lot. So to have another opportunity like this in my life, I would like to pursue at least.
For people who are considering kind of following in your footsteps, pursuing an academic career, do you have a piece of advice for them?
I think one thing that I would definitely say is, it's related to what I was saying before. So never take yourself too seriously, because in the end, I think science can be scary from the point of view in which you see something for the first time and you think that you will never understand what you are seeing. But I think that at the same time, when you are studying something scientifically, I don't know if it is the same also for other topics, but there is this kind of bliss and curse of understanding. Because this is always something that I witnessed, that as soon as you understand something and you have that change of mind, you perceive like an eureka moment. You understand that, and then from that point on, you cannot not understand it anymore. So it's like it becomes trivial, and so you ask yourself, how could I not even understand it before? And so it's the bliss because it's so cool when it happens, but then it's a curse because then you feel stupid because you didn't understand it before. And so I think to understand this thing, so the fact that most of the things appear trivial, but only in hindsight, and most of the things that work only because you tried all the other paths that do not work, it's something that you should keep in mind when approaching science. And as much as scary it may seem, in the end, it's still something that is built by humans, and we are willing, other humans are willing to teach you in case, or to make you part of this collective endeavor. So yeah, and have fun, of course, because at least for experiments and doing experiments in the lab is really something that I enjoy doing.
And what is a message you would like to share with non-scientists, people who are not pursuing this path?
People should not take scientists too seriously as well. Science per se, like the field of science, is the best thing that we have as a human species to understand reality and to use reality to our advantage. That is the most advantageous things, and it's the reason why we are living in the best situation possible in all history now. And I think that our living condition can only be better than this, and in the future they will definitely be better. But the scientists themselves, the people that do this, are humans. And so if you meet a scientist, ask them to try to explain to you what they do in simple terms, and don't be scared that you will not understand, because they are also not understanding the majority of the things that are very close to them, and it took us so much time to understand them in the first place. So at least for my experience, I spent a lot of time on the books and on the exercise to build what I think it's a fairly good knowledge on the thing that I'm working at the moment. And I think that in general, trying to approach people in a way which is dignifying for everyone is a good thing. To share our different roles in society, and science has a very important role, but it's not a role above everything else. It's a role that is complementary, it's good for the future, but we are all humans doing this, and we should enjoy more this human part.
I hope this conversation has sparked our listeners' curiosity. And for those who want to learn more about you, who want to keep following your journey also as a researcher, where can they find you?
So, of course, on my YouTube channel, which is called Mi Offro Io. It's in Italian. I'm starting also to make some videos in English. I did one about the research that I was mentioning before, the research that we published 3 months ago, I think now, 4 months ago. And that I have also an Instagram account, which is still called Mi Offro Io, which is like the business account. I have also my personal one. I'm Lorenzo Graziotto. One can just find me there. I usually try to reply to all the messages that I get. And this is also part of the reason why I enjoy doing this thing, because a lot of students in these years have contacted me and asked me suggestions for their future, not even academic, but like just university studies, what they should do. And I always happily share this, and I would continue to do so.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast, for taking the time to share your knowledge and your perspective on this fascinating world of research and science. And I wish you all the very best.
Thank you, Nicole. It was very cool. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing.